All right, so our meeting started. We'll do roll call. First, Peter Argentine.
Here.
Bennett Aiken,
Here.
Rob Mackey,
Here.
Danya Elias. And Kelly,
Rodney.
Grodnick, here.
Grodnick. Sorry about that. Okay, we have a quorum. Is there anybody here for citizens' comments?
I see one over on attendees. Let's check it out. Is it just Sandy?
Not just Sandy, but.
That's right. Yeah, I shouldn't say that.
Sandy number 3.
Not showing up for whatever reason.
Okay,
I can peek back, but I guess that might be it.
all right, we'll move on. Approval of January minutes. Anyone have any comments or changes on the January minutes? Actually, nicely done. Really.
I move to approve, no comments. A motion to approve, there's no comments.
Second. All in favor of approving the minutes as written? Say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so next, grounds and facility maintenance update. Nope.
Yeah, I'll go, everyone kind of have access to that, projects in the parks list that, Rob created. I can kind of use this just to go down. It might knock out 2 birds with 1 stone here. A lot of the updates will come from this. Over at Williamsburg, we got the last of the stumps done, just about 2 weeks ago. Looking at our plan of attack while soils are still somewhat workable in the sense that they're frozen and friendly for equipment. But we've removed all hazards in terms of stumps. Everything's been leveled out pretty well. The spring tree order is on with Schichtels. There's a handful of oaks, nice big specimen trees, a couple of hickories, I think. Kelly, you can correct me if not. So as soon as those come in, we'll plop them in. I'll get with Kelly and make sure we kind of go where we were thinking before, keep everything nice and spaced out in that park. And then we'll try to get this sucker seeded. Everything's on hand, ready to go. We're just kind of discussing amongst ourselves means and methods of working in a semi-frozen quagmire. Looks like we got for February.
Not so frozen anymore.
Yeah, so we'll figure it out. We'll get it done. But that's Williamsburg. Down to the Bird Park riparian zone, that project's closed out. I did circle back and send something to Habitat Solutions today. When we had met down there, he said, let's revisit in the spring, maybe a planting of the one section of bank that looked like sunlight, whatever reason, humans, deer, all the above. That little section, he was willing to work with us, grab some odds and ends from his nursery, things that make sense. So we are looking at that again. I got to get that rolling. Thornwood, that project closed out. I think we're completely closed on it. That was just that section of riparian from the Cosman property, is that right? Back towards towards the dead end there. Same contractor as Bird Park. He donated probably upwards of 24 or so extra plantings, went above and beyond on the entrance that the residents and everyone used to get to shop and save, get to work on that pedestrian path through there. So he went above and beyond over there. So that one is closed out. Rafferton, we have a site meeting tomorrow, just to review general scope, as well as the pickleball project over at North Meadowcroft. So I'll have more information on that probably for the next meeting. Dixon Lighting, that project is done. Those 22 fixtures replaced high pressure sodium that we went over. So that's been in use. It just caught the end of fall slow pitch season. So we didn't get to have everyone enjoy it, but we're approaching that soon. Dixon Fencing, that grant went through. It was put in front of the commission due to the cost through CoStar's and county pricing, which Allegheny Fence uses. We're going to continue with that project. I have to have it wrapped up before end of April. So you'll see all of a sudden the outfield fencing will be missing pretty soon down there. We're going to try and make sure we minimize any impact to spring sports and have that wrapped up kind of before any spring action down on the field. And that project just entails the outfield section of fencing. The framework of the backstop is just fine. It looks a little older. There's no rust. There's nothing that's falling apart. We're just gonna refabricate it, put new chain link on it, and that whole field will be refreshed kind of over a 3-year period. Seymour batting cages, that really didn't have much to do with us. In terms of anything, we helped out just with some material moving, and they had some stone and sub base. We kind of looked over what they did to make sure manholes were open. We could do what we needed to. They just added an extra batting cage lane. And that was all funded through the baseball, softball association. So we really don't, that was more of just a friendly, we have some big equipment, we can help you out for a sec. So that's all that one was. Tennis center paddle hut, courts 5 and 6, golf course paths. We can reach out to David and look for updates on them, but that stuff, as far as project management, runs through recreation. We can certainly get you updates on it, but there's nothing that kind of at this time worth sharing on those projects. Main Park Fall Zone, met with members from Compan and Forever Lawn, who's kind of a big name up and coming in the surface world right now. So that project was commission approved. Looking at running that through a Omnia, which is a responsibly bid, kind of a CoStars type program to get pricing and move this along. So we're finalizing numbers there. That's an overlay of the upper and lower fall surfaces at Main Park at Martha's. And that will be a normal green lawn looking. We're going to try to blend it into the lawn turf overlay, because we're not in a point where we know what we want for new equipment. That's going to take some years, discussions, open forums, all that good stuff. In the meantime, the surface is beyond what is safe. We have separation between colors, cracks forming, and just the cost to patch even a small area is in the thousands right now. So to redo the entire thing in poured in place rubber, which what is there, I mean, we're talking almost $200,000 probably. We're looking to get the upper and lower resurfaced so it's safe and usable, somewhere in between the 40 to 60,000 range, depending on final pricing here.
It's a temporary fix.
Temporary fix, but it's a good fix. It comes with an 8-year warranty. And that material can be used again, possibly if you keep the same footprint, if things really line up. Highly unlikely, but it is possible to reuse that material again. Pickleball courts we touched on. Pinecone, Rob, unless you have anything, that's kind of a closed out one in terms of any management or efforts that you're looking for from us. If you need more, let me know, but I think we're all checked off over there. Highland Terrace, Rockwood, both those fencings were done last spring, along with a section of Country Club, and Iroquois was also completed. So we have new basketball fencing across those 3 systems. A ask of Country Club, kids were sick of missed shots running down all the way towards whatever that is down through the woods. So we added a little dog leg over. That seems to have solved that. I haven't heard much. Invasive management plan. I can wait till old business and give you guys a thorough update on that. But aside from that, we're just getting into a little bit of preemptive work while it's still warm out. We've replaced adaptive restraints on all the swings in Rockwood, Iroquois, and third one, Williamsburg. All 3 of those seats are the same. Sometimes those strap buckles break, especially when it gets colder and people go to use the park. So that's something we keep on hand. So all 3 of those swings, those adaptive buckles are ready to go. Guys, we're moving playground wood chips back into where it goes, kind of start the year off, see where we're at. And aside from that, we'll get moving here in a little bit. It's by the next meeting, I'll probably have a nice sized chunk of things we're working on. So, yes, sir.
Yeah, 2 questions. The Bradford Field. The baseball diamond is being removed, but when you say the backstop, backstop's already gone.
Backstop's gone, but it's just replacing the fencing so that there's fencing there. If they're playing soccer or whatever, the use is. I think, Danya was going to check, I guess we haven't heard, he was gonna check with, Ian to see what the next steps were with actually planning out Rafferton a little
Yes,
bit more.
she did check in with Ian. So Ian is looking for a member from Parks to join him for Brafferton as well as Main Park master plan.
Same person or?
I believe different. I can clarify, but just something to think about. I'm sure he'll reach out to the group. But just know that he is looking to grab someone for both those projects. He did ask me to relay that tonight, so it's gonna cover that under old, but we're good there, so.
Sorry.
No problem. So I
What
know
kind of,
reach out from the last meeting, asking how they can help, what the involvement should be, expectations, so.
She's probably the one who will do Rafferton, I would think, since she's been more
It
invested.
sounds like she has some kids in soccer and stuff there too, so. That is it for the,
Kelly had a question.
yes,
my question was going to be, what kind of involvement do they need from one of us? And right before you stated that, we're waiting to hear.
yeah, he'll be reaching out. Just wanted to get that out tonight to think amongst yourselves. That Ian will be looking for one, for each of those, kind of higher end projects.
And then, I don't know if you guys know this, because it's in the rec, section, but with the paddle hut at 350, was that raised just all privately?
The vast majority of it.
Wow.
What we did was we provided the sewer and utility connections. So we extended and hooked up the sanitary sewer, storm connections for rainwater that comes off the building, and the gas and water lines. They had to be extended from down by Cedar Boulevard.
I guess my point is they raised several $100,000.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
I know, when were they here? The presentation, it's phenomenally well done.
Yeah.
You know, thought through fundraising.
It was Dawn,
They did their own
Gavitt.
design.
Don Gavitt.
They
Yeah, that
came to
presentation.
us for exterior comments on decorative, you know, how we refit. It just really was a well done effort by the platform.
That was probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago,
Could
something
have
like
been, yeah,
that.
because what they said, it was 4 or 5 years in the making.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it was not a quick, they worked on it for 4 or 5 years.
Amazing amount.
And
Yeah.
no, but the design and everything they did, it was really thought out, really well, nice project.
I haven't been in it yet, but it's, from what I understand, it's pretty nice and it's.
It'd be nice to see, so it's done, I've
Yeah.
been to Main Park. I guess went through it. And looked at what's well done.
Hey, Rob, thanks for doing this grid. It's really helpful.
And I have a couple of questions related to Phil's list. You guys have done a lot. That's great. Thank you so much. Related to Williamsburg Park, now that the trees have been ordered, would now be a good time to contact the citizens to let them know that trees have been ordered and invite them, or let them know that once the trees come in, we're going to be laying them out. If they would like to meet on site beforehand, or when we meet on site with the trees, that may be a good time to get together to lay it out. I don't want to give them the authority to lay it out, but at least to come and give us the okay. I'm just not sure how to move forward with this.
I think it's appropriate to give them an update,
Mhm.
especially now that it's been ordered. As long as we're confident that's the inventory that's going to come in, I don't see any reason not to tell them what's coming. As far as the layout goes, I figure that's
We lost you.
more of a site, on site, the people that are doing the planting, it's up to them.
Okay.
So just a little bit of history, way back when we were first conceiving this project, Rudy said, we're gonna get a backlash from the neighborhood. We said, we understand and we're gonna proceed because it's the right thing to do. So it was kind of a PAB understood. We knew this was kind of coming. We tried to communicate but the trees need to come down. So, yeah.
They're down, I mean, and we've had a plan all
But
along.
it's going great.
Yeah, and the next 10 or
We have to
15
do our
years.
best, but just, you know, there was a fair amount of thought in the beginning and to attempt to communicate and, you know, we just said if the neighborhood gets upset, which they probably will, it's all our fault. It's not Public Works.
But
It was, you know, so,
I think as far as the layout goes, though, I mean, communication is good. People just appreciate that, and it also, you know, if you set the boundaries and say, you know, we just want to share this with you, we're not sure that we can actually tweak things, but is there anything that jumps out or anything like that? I think
Mhm.
people appreciate that.
I mean, we'll put some stakes in the ground. We've already made the determination on what we want, and where we want it.
Right.
Mhm.
That's why we bought the material that we did. So we'll throw some stakes in the ground and say, hey, here's where it's gonna be and go from there. I think once we get it grassed in and everything and it really starts to, grass over, it's gonna look great. It
Yeah.
really gonna look on
oh, are we
it.
gonna overseed the whole hill or?
Yeah, we're gonna see the whole
Nice.
place.
Yeah.
And once we get a one in there, and kids can go out there and throw frisbees and footballs,
And it's not.
run around with the dog. Exactly, yeah. It's
Okay.
gonna be drier now too, because
You get sunlight.
exactly, you're gonna get air movement through there, so it's gonna dry the soils out. It's just gonna be a lot better.
Mhm. Okay, great. Then I will send an email and I'll just let them know, we heard them. I think one of their concerns was the long-term sustainability of the park. So thinking about, letting them know that the second round of trees that were selected once again, we focused on the longevity, the size of the trees, nice large canopy. And once the trees are delivered or before, right around the time they're going to come in, we'll go out and stake and I'll let them know when we're going to do that. And we'll lay it out. And then if they have any concerns,
Sure.
just to be in touch.
And by no means is this the end of it. I mean, we can always plant more material. If we
Yeah.
see gaps and we see things like that, we can always go in, and then we have a layer effect too. The whole planting isn't the same age and we have different, variety of materials that are grown at different times, and it breaks up the maturity of the whole site. So
Right,
this is probably the right way of doing it.
right. So that all the trees don't have to be clear cut at the same time next time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So our predecessors 50 or 60 years ago or whatever decided to just use volunteer trees that are
Right.
fast growing trees and leave them there. Well, and they left us the problem that they all die at the same time.
Too many of them too, because they were too tight together.
And they're shoot that did, we're just
Nothing but top.
mixing in some trees that have 300, 400-year lives. But yeah, granted, it takes 60 years before they look halfway decent,
Right.
but then you get 240 years of use out of it.
Right, right.
I mean, you look
Great,
at something
okay.
like the public greens in New England, it took 200-300 years before they look really, really nice,
I mean, even that redwood where you enter the park next to the tennis courts, look how big and mature and beautiful that is. It's not in the greatest place being on the hillside there, but too bad that's not further up into the wooded area.
One more question, if I can, before we move on, just about the Bird Park Riparian project. One of the discussion points was coming back in spring when the perennials and the ferns start to, well, the ferns, I think mostly were Christmas ferns, so they're evergreen. But we wanted to do kind of a quick survey to see what comes up and see where we may need to add some plants before coming up with a plan. So, that'll probably be April or so, maybe May. And Richard, I was curious if maybe you could tell us a little bit about the riparian project that the Nature Conservancy is working on and how this may or may not overlap. Is the riparian project that's being led by the Nature Conservancy closer to Washington Road? Is it further up the creek?
It's up, in essence, it's upstream. It's on the far side of the culvert from Youngwood. So,
Okay.
really, it starts where this project ended.
Mhm.
Then we cleared some intervening area and then, the brush was cleared and then Phil took down the big trees. But as
Okay.
far as where they're planting, I think this project stopped, there's that gap, there's a little bit of a gap, and then the Nature Conservancy project starts. But I'm
Okay.
not that familiar with their planting plan.
They had their grant form, they had a map that shows it, Kelly, I can send that to you. Is
Okay,
there-
that'd be great, yeah.
So, but that was actually my follow-up question was I was just there today and, all the cut forsythia and stuff is laying on the sides. Is that supposed to just lay there or is that for pickup or?
I think it's for pickup, something next spring.
If it's by the paths, if it's by the main.
Right,
path,
yeah.
We had told them we'll work on getting that material out.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I was just
As-
curious as to whether it was gonna degrade on the sides or just be pulled out. I know
it's
it's,
good, bring a chipper in, chip it in place or something.
Okay.
It's spread it around the trails right there, the easiest.
In the next meeting, sorry, Nature Conservancy will update us in the next meeting. So please have your questions ready for them for March.
Okay, thank you.
I know replanting that one area, I did buy 4 of those dog hobbles and just planted them to see how they do in that other cut. So, you know, that's a possible plant to put in that. You know, it grows in fairly shaded areas and it'll cling to a hillside eminently, so. If you can get it into the hillside.
Great. And then one final question about the fall zone at Mount Lebanon Park. I'm curious about the process that has either been taken in the past or that will need to take to determine what playground material or what playground structure will be selecting to replace the existing. What is the process that the
That's gonna
township?
be part of the main park, master plan that's taking place this year. That's what Ian needs to volunteer for, so.
Okay.
That'll be determined as part of that whole,
And will that Martha's Run charity be involved since in they?
I don't know for sure, but I don't think so. I think this is just this is an evaluation of specifically the main park property.
Oh, no, I mean, just the playground equipment, if we, do they still get involved with donating playground equipment?
They funded that originally.
Yeah,
I don't know if that would happen again or not. I'm sure that, you know, there would be some research or some outreach to find someone that would help to offset the cost of that.
Okay, yeah, because I'm just curious whether or not the selection of the playground equipment could be sped up, or, you know, whether the process could be kind of abstracted in a way so that we could do the entire project at the same time, rather than spending the 40 to 60 on the overlay. The 8 years it's actually a really nice warranty period, but I think a full, do you know what the warranty is on a complete removal and replacement of the rubber? Is it 30 years or so?
I don't think it's that long.
No.
I believe it 10 to 15 was
Okay,
max for them, and that's if you clean, apply rejuvenator binders, go through a lot of steps on that.
okay,
And right now, the rubber, the thickness of the rubber that's there is, its depths are correct to the equipment locations.
mhm,
So it'd be nice to say you could just rip out equipment and put new in. But you'd have to go all the way down and start with the base and come up. So
mhm,
to match up those concrete curves to the use zones of new equipment
mhm.
would be pretty difficult. You may end up with less equipment than what you might desire or a different fit, so.
I think what we looked at when we budgeted was we have to do something now because it's to a point where it's deteriorated enough that we need to keep it safe. So this is I'll call it a medium-term patch to make it safe, make it compliant with the fall zones, yet, you know, get some extended life if we should determine that the playground's gonna go up by the commissioner's lot or some other place. We wouldn't lose as much by removing what we're installing now, but we have to do something, and this was the most economical way to go.
those
Without
playgrounds,
replacing the
in
rubber.
my personal opinion, are the heaviest used assets in the entire
Right.
park system.
And they'll still be ADA accessible because you can still take a wheelchair or, because we looked at chips too, just going back to chips. But then it's not ADA
Yeah.
accessible. and, you know, that was pretty important to everyone as
But all
well.
in, if you had to do a full replacement equipment and padding, it's six,
Oh.
700,000.
Oh, well, like Phil said, the surface alone with the rubber surface would be almost 200,000.
And that's just,
And the equipment's about 250.
It's probably more than that, but,
that's just the 2 inches of top,
Right.
EDM, it's not the sub work, you know.
right,
So if you could believe it, you could easily spend $1 million on those playgrounds.
playgrounds, right? If you're,
If you really were, but it's just that.
It's just it's where they are.
Because of all the liability insurance related to playground equipment manufacturer, that they really have to charge a lot because of the
and a
liability.
site prep and an installation and all that, right? So that's how we got where we're at now.
I don't know why I was thinking that we had talked about this maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and it had been discussed that the playground structure was going to need to be replaced sooner than later, that it was meeting the end of its life. And I may be remembering,
All the parts are still able to be ordered.
okay,
Right now, we have just minor aesthetic maintenance items that we'll be doing this month. Sails that come off, a wheel comes off the stand in place car. They're nothing function or safety related, and I can get
oh,
it
great,
in 10 days, so everything's still manufactured.
that's great. I don't know why I was thinking that. I must have, I don't know, misheard something, or my mind was going somewhere else. So, okay, that's great.
Just on playground, I got a positive comment from a citizen about, is it Iroquois? There's like a swing seat for a toddler to sit across from the mom. I had someone reach out to me and just say that is a fantastic piece of equipment.
There in Rockford.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really like, it was a young mom and somehow they got my name and said they really appreciated that piece of equipment. Okay, any more questions or comments on the grounds and facilities? Next one is high level status of projects underway in parks. I guess that is part of this. Okay. Mission update, Andrew's not here.
He said he'd be here a little later if you want to jump in.
Okay. All right, seasonal calendar, just, I think, Rob, just, Bob, you want me to just go through, just, I mean, this is what we've got on our schedule. So next month, like you said, Nature Conservancy is coming, to give us an update on their efforts. April's still open. May will go over park assessments, July, no meeting. I guess August, we're gonna talk about deer management. And so, Rob, were you looking for like ideas for like April, October, November, or what did you want to accomplish in this?
That is just to let everyone know what's coming up. If you do have a suggestion as what can go in some of the empty spaces, please, sure. But I wasn't looking to necessarily fill them at this time. It's just, this is the time that we'll move to the current item, which is the bird park field.
I assume at some point that we should, we're touching on the invasive plan, we should have there'll be a report out, so I would assume one of those slots would be the
So,
invasive report.
The
out.
idea here was, this is the space for items that we don't discuss every meeting. Invasives, because it's a project underway and
Okay,
we are intimately involved, we should discuss that every meeting. So this is for additional items that aren't discussed every meeting.
So, Rob, I was wondering, the last meeting, I think Andrew, and we had a little discussion with Andrew and Rudy about the capital improvement plan and when that should fall. And it seems like October, November is late.
Oh, well, it's already set.
Yeah, it's already set by then,
If
so
we
I
want
think,
to talk about things that we want to add, then that should probably be that April, May
okay.
area.
Okay, that sounds good.
And I mean, I don't think it has to be a long protracted discussion, but
right,
something that we do talk about, budget in general and rankings and so forth. So
yeah, usually like one session where everybody throws stuff out, and then we rank, and then,
well, and we have a list that hasn't been completed from
Right.
previous budgets as well. Don't
Right.
forget the capital budget's a 5-year plan. So
right,
there are things that are, need to be bounced around, or it helps us to let the manager and the commissioners know what the park board supports. And that's really what you guys are here for.
but if there's
So-
new stuff too, you guys
That's
need
right.
time to budget.
And fine pricing and exactly right, yes.
Okay, I'll add that for the April time slot. Thank you.
Sure.
So also, Rob, are we supposed to, in this slot, talk about the resolution?
Yes, this is now since we're in February, this is the
We're gonna do it.
Bird Park time.
Okay.
In this block here. But I'd say first, if there's any more questions on the block. Okay,
Just so I know, what do you guys want to talk about street trees, so we can prepare whatever the discussion is going to be about that in September?
The idea would be to talk
You broke up, you're breaking up, Rob.
Everything after idea.
in a car.
Sure. I'm not lost in now.
We lost you, Rob.
Those thoughts are a little scattered. Is that too late, Rudy, for any discussion of street trees?
I could talk
I'm not
about
sure
street
you
trees
want-
anytime, but
Yeah.
yeah. I just.
When you put in your order,
Yeah, we usually, our fall order is usually going in around then September.
The
All right,
other is
we
do
get back.
you need any of us to go to bat in front of the commission for more budget?
Not really. We're pretty well funded.
he used chat to send the message.
He's off now. I think we
Wow.
lost him
Okay.
completely. We dropped him from the list.
All right,
All right, we can come back to that. All right, either you want
okay,
to.
so I have a resolution / recommendation. Of course, any resolution from us is not binding. But we put other documents and recommendations before the commission. I just found this format actually helped me to organize and get a handle on it because it is complex. So you're probably all aware, last year in the 5-year plan, it kind of, well, first there was Parks Master Plan. And Richard can talk a little bit about that, about turfing was brought up and then it was dropped. And the night we had the group meeting, it didn't really seem to have, when we did those bags apportioning number of tickets, it didn't seem to have a lot of backing to it. And then suddenly it appeared in the municipal manager's 5-year plan and it was approved. Prior to being approved, I asked Mindy to tell us like how it got in there. And she said that Ian told her that it was put in there to facilitate discussion on the topic, which didn't seem to me to be an appropriate way to facilitate discussion in the public by just like putting it in this massive document with all these other things.
Well, it was a bit of a process issue because we said we'd do the master plan. We did the master plan. It was considered the master plan and rejected by the consultant as a priority. And then we were told, okay, let's stick to the master plan. And then the project that was rejected by the consultant was put into the capital budget. That's just a process issue.
So I've organized the resolution and I'm sorry to get it to you late. Work kind of interfered with getting it out sooner. The versions you have are not quite up to date. The only change is that we went through it and corrected capital improvement plan, CIP, throughout the document. Otherwise, there's no really change to the content. But it's all laid out there in terms of the issues with sustainability, chemical runoff, health of young athletes, stormwater remediation. I feel, and the research shows that it can be handled as well, if not better, with natural grass fields that are installed with that in mind. Impact on the Bird Park ecosystem and natural area, Markham students and passive users during the construction. Richard has done some kind of back of napkin calculations on the amount of soil that would need to be moved and also, areas for storing all the equipment and so forth. We're concerned that a road might have to be built the current road would not be able to handle dump trucks turning. And so a road might have to be built from the lower parking lot straight up through all the area that's been restored. Who knows, and then further, it doesn't seem, it's not really in here, but, because it started getting more complex and we don't know exactly. But it seems, Richard can address this, it seems fairly clear that, an actual engineering plan was not done, an assessment and an actual comprehensive budget. So we feel that the budget number is also extremely low.
Could be. I mean, it-
Could be.
I'll touch on it.
And, so also that the justifications that were listed in the 5-year plan, we think are faulty in that, some of these justifications don't necessarily lead to the idea of artificial turf. They could equally lead to renovating the turf that's there. And then I've backed it up. There's tons of information on this, but there's some really good information about natural grass playing fields being installed and working well, including some in Southwest PA. Heidelberg is one of the case studies, Heidelberg Township nearby. Denison University, you see a quote at the bottom of the resolution about the success. It all needs further research, but my point is it was put in the budget and the community hasn't really debated it fully. It hasn't. On top of it, I think all of the evidence, I would say I'm against it especially in the bird park setting, which is again, a natural park. And I think it would just kind of go against all that. Additionally, not mentioned here because further research needs to be done. But in looking at some of the history of the park and the acquisition of the land, some of it was acquired using Pennsylvania Act 70 funds. And we're not sure that the Act 70 funds might restrict how the land is used. It definitely would require full access to any facility, any recreation facility. So it couldn't be fenced in, locked in any way, or enclosed. So any questions about any of the specifics of this? Any suggestions for changes? Richard,
Yeah, well, I had concerns on a couple of fronts when it popped up in the capital plan. I mean, when the dialogue between it was a joint, PAB, SAB consultant meeting. And we were talking about, should this be considered? And we said, certainly let's consider it. And part of it was also, Rudy had brought, we never put the field in correctly. So could we would need to be redone to do a proper natural grass field. So we said the consultant, we could consider either an artificial turf or a natural turf field, but rebuilding it either way. And that would be great if you could consider that. And our understanding is they considered it, they looked at it, they deemed it too expensive either way, and that there was challenges and it didn't make the master plan. And part of the challenges were, you have to take that entire area down 1.5 feet or so. You have to put a base layer in. And so you're talking about all in and out of the park, about 500 commercial sized dump trucks of fill removal and fill put in. And the question was, how would you even get vehicles in and out of that space? Because Youngwood's a private road, so you can't use Youngwood. It doesn't belong to the city. You'd have to get homeowner position. I doubt you get homeowner permission. So you got to come either from Beedling somehow. And then, so there's a whole logistical issue. There's no space for laydown areas for equipment. So the whole, how would you even build it? No one, and we've read a track record of the city of like McNeely, where we just say, hey, we'll go get something. And we don't really think through what is it going to take to actually do the construction. So there's that whole issue that there's been any, like, that we're aware of as a PAB, any feasibility studies that is this even truly a feasible project from an engineering perspective? Then Peter raised, when we started looking into the northern 2/3 of the park was bought with an Act 70 grant. And an Act 70 grant basically makes it like state forest. And there's use restrictions on what you can and can't do with Act 70 land. And one of the items you can't do is you cannot put facilities on Act 70 land that are restricted to only certain parties using it. It has to be open to all parties, not just in your municipality, but in Pennsylvania. So did people think through, if we build a turf field on Bird Park, we can't make it exclusively used for Mount Lebanon sporting groups. It has to be open to anyone and first come, first served. So there's complications with putting facilities on Act 70 land, and that's just because it's state land. It's not really, it's governed like it's a state forest. And because of that, Act 70 was to preserve areas in urban Pennsylvania cities as green spaces.
Bird Park was donated. I didn't.
No,
I mean,
it's an
I never
Act,
really-
it's an Act 70 grant purchase.
This was interesting because
20
actually, there were, the Act 70, the article about the Act 70 purchase says adjoining the Bird Park Memorial Land. This was 1968, Bird Park, and I believe was established in 67. And so, and actually looking at the deeds, it appears that there were
Yeah,
actually
we
several
tried
parcels
The two parcels that were bought with the Act
purchased
70.
together, so it changed my whole understanding of how this
Yeah,
happened.
that wasn't, I didn't know that.
No, we
man.
found all that, yeah, we found all
I'll share it
that.
with you, I
It
have.
was $170,000 state grant, 50% of the purchase via the Act 70. So that 28.5 acres, the whole, basically the eastern 2/3 of the park is subject to Act 70 restrictions.
You're sure it's that area, not the area down at Rob Hollow off of Penner's Run?
No,
Okay.
we checked the plats, we checked, so there's a question, when I tried to look at the Act 70 regulations. It says you can build facilities, like I said, grass run, airplane strips, anything, but it has to stay grass. It has to stay green. We may not even be able to put a turf field in there because it's an artificial surface.
Well,
So somebody needs to research all that.
Well, before we even go there. I probably missed this, I'm sorry, I'm late. How did turf get on the CIP in the first place? Do we know? Okay. Because honestly, as I look at this, right, and if you guys vote on this, I bring it to the commission, with no problem. Yeah, as it stands right now. Yeah, for me, this is ultimately, a question not of should we turf Bird Park, but why the hell do we have a field in Bird Park at all? I know we have capacity needs. That's legitimate. But I'm of the distinct opinion that, or the strong opinion that, let's go turf a different athletic field that's already actively used, probably on a school district field, to build capacity to play. Bird Park should be turned into more forest or wildflower meadow or something else in an active open space. Not be trying to build more into it. We need to be actively managing it as a park. And to your point, right, it would be complicated to build there. We could do it. I'm sure we could.
Yeah, good.
But I would much rather put money into Mellon Field or Jefferson's Field as turf. Because those spaces are already designed for it. They have capacity for it. We can actively work with them to do that. Bird Park is,
And there's parking there too.
yeah, well, Bird Park, there's.
No, I mean, at Jefferson.
Oh, right, exactly. Yeah, right.
Ample parking.
There's better facilities to think about building capacity to play sports than Bird Park. So for me, I like I said, I have no problem bringing this forward, but for me, this is kind of a non-starter. I would personally never support it, and I don't know any commissioners who'd be like, oh yeah, let's go turf Bird Park. Now, granted, we haven't had the sports groups all come breathe down our necks yet, so.
Well, the thing was, it was in the 5-year plan that then got approved, so that's what raised my concern about this.
Well, it caused,
So-
it caused confusion on our part because we went through this master planning process. It was suggested, I was there when it was suggested, it was added to the mix of the consultant, and the consultant rejected it.
Right.
So we're not following just good practice. We hired a professional planner. They
Right.
considered it, they rejected it, said it doesn't meet the priority cut compared to other projects.
Sure.
We accepted and voted and approved that planner's report. And then we turned around and put in a project that they rejected.
And the CIP is there.
Yeah, and I didn't understand that. That to me was confusing too.
Well, I would just argue that CIP, the CIP planning is kind of it's the bucket list, right? It's like, look, it's all out there. I don't know if I'm ever gonna get to Egypt, but I'm gonna say I want it on my list, right? That's kind of how CIP tends to work, especially the farther out on it you are. They can sit out there forever. So I honestly, it's a good planning tool to say, we think we're gonna need about $2 million for something. Right, and we're gonna call it Turfing Bird Park. But the reality is that there's a whole lot of steps that have to happen from it going on the 5-year CIP into an actual budget with the planning, with the approvals. So it's a long ways away. Again, so I wouldn't worry about it in that respect. But I think you have a valid point in that we have a Parks Master Plan that has a list of projects. Did all those make it on the CIP? I don't know. Right? And it's like, well, why the hell do we do this? Right? At least stick them on there somewhere. And it's a valid point.
So, I mean, one of the things I do address is we're recommending that the commission look to other, like, as you were saying, look to other facilities, look to other solutions in general. I think to your point about it not mattering much, it's still my experience with other things, not specifically this. Once it gets on there, it starts to look like it's embedded. Oh, this has been agreed upon prior, so it gets this momentum to it. And that's why I'd like to have it removed. If, I don't know if that's even feasible in terms of the.
Well, we can't remove it from the approved one, but what we can do is take it off of next one, because there's one approved every year.
To your point, it may have been a better say, turf a field somewhere in Mount Lebanon.
Yeah,
X dollars, and say, we need to do the study to figure out, we know we need to do one, we don't know where. But we want to put the placeholder in the budget because it needs to get
In
done.
which there's still evidence, I think, within this document presented that artificial turf is not necessarily the solution. That regular natural turf can sometimes, deal with capacity.
right.
And that's what the case studies.
Well, and I think that's a fair point, right? Rudy, if I recall correctly, you have a degree in turf management. So if anybody knows anything about turf in this room, yeah, it should be you. And so again, I think that's a question of is it safe? And we've had these discussions and we don't need to hash it all out here, but more importantly, the cost differential for natural turf and proactively managing a field to the quality that we in Mount Lebanon expect. Right, which I have no doubt is expensive because it takes people and time to just do the fields over and over and over again. Right, and then you have downtime because there's mud and I remember my kid playing on Jefferson in a mud pit one year, and that shut the field down for, I think, the rest of the season.
Turf wasn't installed completely properly.
Well, right, so yeah,
And I think
right,
that's the
proper
point
drainage.
And I was shocked actually when I read up on how you build a good natural turf field. It's as expensive as an artificial turf. If you really want to do it right,
right.
and to have grass that will survive the mud, heavy rain.
But you can still overuse it, that's the bottom line. You have to have enough facilities that you can rest fields and you can rotate play. And big enough that you can move your fields around. If you don't have that, you're still gonna, I don't care how much money you throw at it or spend on it, you're still gonna end up with, you can wear asphalt out if you walk on it too much. So
Right.
a living thing doesn't have a chance, of too much traffic or playing in a rain or right after a rain. You have to give it an opportunity.
This is a really.
You have to have some control.
This is a wet, cloudy, low cloudiest part of the country. It's a tough
Yeah,
place to do.
It's definitely difficult here, yeah. But it's a capacity issue, as you mentioned first, so that's, it's.
But again, I go back to, I think you're raising valid points, right? And if this board says, we want to pass a resolution, pass a resolution, right? And it will go to commission and we'll all nod and go, okay. And hopefully, and I think one of the things would be, does the commission want to actively tell the manager that we don't want this item on the CIP next year, right? Or we want to see it in a different way. So I think a clear recommended action to do that, I think makes sense. But other than that, I think this is honestly pretty, safe and not,
Or
yeah, I
So
mean,
would you suggest that we amend it to add that, to recommend to the, or just leave it as is?
I would say, y'all, if you vote to pass it with that amendment, and then you change it and send it to me, I'll send it to Keith or send it to these guys.
So the point being, that I guess that what you would do is you amend it to have a recommendation at the end that the resolution recommends the commissioners either remove the item or amend it to, make it not per park specific.
Yeah. I would say to, in the upcoming CIP, the Parks Board recommends.
Okay.
Changing the item in the current CIP to however you want to word that language, right, to do X.
Like, we're all, Kelly, Rob, we're all dominating the conversation. Do
Yeah.
you guys have any comments, or Bennett?
I like what I'm hearing. I agree with Peter's sentiment that once it's in the documentation, and if it gets repeated over and over, an idea can get traction. So I do support the idea of the amendment to remove it from the future CIP. And I just strongly endorse the idea of finding the right field to improve, not necessarily Bird Park Field. There are other places in Mount Lebanon. I like the idea of Mellon and Jefferson. I like the idea of working with the school district. So I like everything that I'm hearing there. Thanks.
I second that. I also appreciated the comment about thinking about other more natural ways we could use the Bird Park Field. So I think that that's maybe something to explore for the future, as all of this restoration hard work is going into Bird Park. Whether we end up keeping that as a field, because it does require a lot of work and is costly. So if we do end up turfing another field, do we keep that as a grass field, one of the few in the township, or do we think about an alternate use for it, like a interpretive gardens or space for just extending the forested areas into the park and revegetating that area. So it's something to consider for the future.
Any?
Yeah, I agree with the consensus seems to be forming here, but nothing, I don't need to say anything more than what Rob and Kelly and others have just said.
So I guess I'll move that we approve the resolution, subject to Peter putting the recommended action item at the end concerning a clear recommendation to the commission, either delete or amend as they see appropriate, but to not be focused on Bird Park. Okay, I move we vote to approve it. For a
Second that.
All in favor? Aye.
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 So recorded was unanimous.
I'll circulate the amendment before it's finalized, make sure everybody's okay with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
On the Act 70 issue, is actually the Historical Society pointed out to us. They sent us an article, said, by the way, did you guys know this land was Act 70 land? And and they sent us the newspaper announcement from 1968 about where we announced that we got the grant.
Is the paving of the Bird Park parking lot, is that this year or is that in the 5-year?
I don't think it's not this year.
It's not this year.
That's my other.
That's one that,
I think the school district should pay for it. Because they're the ones that use it. They're the ones
yeah.
pushing for it,
Yeah.
for the parking from our employees.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want it to be permeable. I want it to look like the parking lot in South Park. They put it, that the county put in.
Mhm.
Have you guys seen that new,
and they,
something like that would be nice.
Phipps also has one that they park cars right on top of.
Right.
That looks like a lawn.
Oh, yeah, those are
Like a
fancy, yeah.
lattice, what if somebody showed a lattice where you put
Yeah.
stonework inside the lattice?
Right.
Those are nice too. Okay, I'm sorry, good topic again. All right, any other new business from members? All right, no new business, old business updates, Main Park Master Plan. I guess, was that related, Rob, to needing a volunteer?
That's what Phil said earlier.
Yeah. So do we have a volunteer or no?
Would anyone like to volunteer?
I think Phil said that, Ian would tell us more details about what is needed.
He's gonna reach out. yeah.
And so then I think it might be easier to volunteer if we knew what we were in for.
Fair enough. He's gonna, I think Ian wants to talk with us generally, meaning the whole group, about both projects. And he was anxious to get them closed out this year, so maybe that's appropriate. Yeah, wait until we hear from him to designate or pick someone.
All right, so just a bit of history, that whole Main Park maintenance spreadsheet, that originated from me, and then a group of us, the second year, did it as a group. So that dates back to 2018, I think. So if Ian wants an explanation of, and then the consultant picked that up and rolled it into the Parks Master Plan. So if I can help on that front, if they're trying to understand where that came straight out of the scouting Parks Infrastructure Inspection Guide. So I just used, okay, Park Design Guideline,
Yeah, we're supposed to prioritize these.
oh, okay,
The question is whether or not we're going to take on all of these or eliminate one or more. And the challenge was a couple of them are already in progress. We have now heard from Ian that he wants our help with 2 of them. So do we want to continue with the others? I guess the struggle I have is who determines what we need to accomplish. It's really just us. If we want to put effort towards a topic, is it a matter of if we don't finish it or don't make significant progress, is it not worthwhile doing? So I'm really stuck on whether or not we try to cull this thing anymore.
well, and that's maybe for Andrew. So does it look pretty certain that the boards are gonna get reconstituted in
Yes.
January? Okay, so my one thought would be, our focus should be on things we can get done by December. And not a half or a third of the way done by December, and the kind of priorities we have, or, the communications and signage, I know Ben's working on that. Be really nice to get something done by December.
That's what we said last year.
Yeah, I know, and it's just, if that, we gotta do like, this is our last gasp before we die, kind of effort.
Well, I think it's not momentum. There's been stuff
We,
on and.
It's a part of boards, what would be we've been going for 28 years now, 29 years, something like that.
we're moving on that. We sent Mindy a spreadsheet with recommendations for all the locations at all of the parks where we believe that signage would be where we recommended it be located, also possible areas to explore for wayfinding. And I think that was going to kind of get the ball rolling with the
Atlanta.
process with Kalano. Yeah,
Right. Yeah, we
so
had
that's
We had a good meeting.
hopefully in action.
So,
They did.
Yeah.
I mean, the 6
No, no,
items on
no,
here,
our group.
and I don't know whether people, the 2 that really stick out of, can we really get these done this year, or the 2 guideline ones?
Well, actually, on trail restoration and guidelines, I've already found a ton of resources that are out there. And I'd be willing to take that on to kind of cull that down, get it into a document that we could have like an initial, at least an initial, and I'm a believer in keeping it simple, so it's not exceptionally complicated. So I think we could at least certainly by the end of the year, have a fine draft, if not a final draft. Especially if somebody would be willing to join me in that, but even just,
Chess Ron Block, see if he would help.
oh,
I had said that I would do it, and I just haven't had a chance to start tackling it. So Peter, I'm happy to to take that on
Well,
with you.
it's a personal passion of Ron. I mean, he's single-handedly done a lot of the trail work over the last 15, 20 years or coordinated it. So he might, you'll want to have input. And he's
That's great.
he's trained landscape architect, so,
Right.
you know.
Now, the more hands the merrier. I mean, it would,
Mhm.
there's a lot to call through. But again, the guidelines are out there. It's just a matter of looking what other people have done and taking the best practices from the line and ones that apply to us.
May I, on trail guidelines,
Yes.
being a backpacker, there's a difference between a backpacking trail and a meandering walking trail in a urban park.
Right.
I would argue that Bird Park is more like deer trails that have just evolved over the years. Right?
A little more than that.
A little bit more than that, right? There's been, but they're not wide enough to, or designed to support a person in a wheelchair.
No, they're not accessible.
But are those types of things that we want to be thinking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the direction.
Accessibility is part of this.
Okay,
Well, I mean, if you go back to 2003 master plan, it was close off some of the trails, widen the rest. We have
Awesome.
too many trails and we need fewer well-built trails. And that's just been, we've never, again, it's just something that's always been out there.
Ron actually sent me an email today, talking about that there's a trail that goes from the upper parking lot to Washington Road that he thinks with a little bit of work could be an accessible trail because it's relatively level. So, but yes, accessibility, and as you say, there's all kinds of trails and they require different surfaces. Part of what's happened in Bird is a lot of impact, especially after the pandemic. And so there's areas that do need some work and erosion.
Bikes
Slopes.
need more, if people are taking mountain bikes because of the pressure per square inch, you even need even better design trails.
Right.
And Bird Park's been impacted by bike.
sure.
Certainly.
And Kelly's point, when she brought this up, was that, establishing what surfaces to use for certain trails. So there are, they're also called volunteer trails, the deer trails you're talking about, which are basically established by people cutting through, and you try to block those off by putting logs and things across. It doesn't always work, but there are some established trails. There's a map actually that maybe has too many trails on it. Yeah, that's all part of, I mean, it wouldn't be designing all the trails by any means. It's just like the guidelines again. Right, Kelly, do you have anything else to say on that?
Yeah, it was a comment that I heard from one of the, now I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was a public works employee, staff person who, yeah, they were removing a tree in Bird Park, and we started talking about the trails, and he was just commenting on how there are so many different types of materials covering the trails. There's gravel in some areas, mulch in other areas, and oftentimes gravel and mulch mixed together, and that just creates a muddy mess and a maintenance issue. And so he was just voicing how it would be really helpful if different types of trails had different guidelines. And we discussed this, that there are so many different volunteer groups coming in, and many hands working in the parks, and different groups may be bringing in different materials at different times. So having the guidelines would be really helpful, and I think would help with maintenance down the road also.
Okay. So
Could I
on this
add
list,
on this?
there's nothing we want to cull.
Wait, Rob had a question.
Yeah, could I add one item on the trails? I didn't give you guys an update, but that Complete Streets Transportation and Mobility meeting that I attended, I think there's an opportunity for the parks to string together some entities with potentially some usefulness to the greater transportation network. So one of the things we might look towards in terms of trails, some of the trails anyway, is being a part of that in establishing some more deliberate, intentional, well-built trails using that transportation network as one of its drivers.
That's a great point. If we think about the parklet, the Rob Hollow Parklet, and how nicely that was constructed, that pathway with the lines, excuse me, the limestone gravel and the fines, it's really nice, it's accessible. That may be the only location we see that type of installation in Mount Lebanon, but that would be a nice ADA accessible type of trail to see in other locations and offer that connectivity and accessibility.
I know you want to actually get to the agenda, but I literally just got out of a meeting talking about mobility in the South Hills. Right, because we're kind of in a generational shift right now in terms of mobility. And there's frankly just a lot of money that is falling from the federal government and the state government over the next decade to invest in infrastructure. And I work with municipalities all over the place, and I always tell people, look, right now your job is to have a plan. Because the money's coming. It might not be this year, it might not be next year, but the money is coming. And from an active transportation plan perspective, it's my hope that, and I didn't want to do this year because the comp plan is going on and that takes up all the oxygen in the room. But as we think about the next steps around mobility, we've passed the complete streets policy. We are consolidating the traffic and parking boards into a mobility board. It is my hope that we can get an active transportation plan consultant to come in. And I firmly agree with you that the parks are a part of that. It's not just the parks though. It's also potentially some paper streets, right? That are now simply just there. And we don't want to manage them. The property owners don't want to manage them. And I don't blame anybody for that situation. But as we look at an active transportation network, and think about getting people out of cars and onto bikes or on their scooters or whatever it is they want to use. The parks are obviously a key piece of that, which goes back to we need well-designed trails because I can't think of those volunteer trails as part of an active transportation network. But I can think of 5 foot wide or however wide they need to be, gravel with the right base. As part of that network. So again, I go back to, putting in a policy that says, here are our guidelines, and we all agree on them and they make sense. And anytime we go do, an upgrade, this is how we do it. It becomes part of a much broader network than just the parks.
Okay, so no, appreciate all the input. But so as far as this agenda item, I guess the consensus is we're not going to cut any of these items. We'll just try to get them all done this year.
We want to rank them, or does that matter?
Maybe instead of ranking, we think about splitting them up amongst members somewhat equally so that we're all working on something or two things.
So just prior to now, so communications and signage is, Ben, you've got the ball on that, right? Who else is working with
Kelly too.
And Kelly, so that's delegated. Rafferton is Danya, correct?
We think so, yeah.
Yeah, we think so. Main Park Master Plan, I said, I mean, I can help as I can. I'm pretty busy consulting wise right now, but if there's volunteers needed, I can kind of raise my hand for that.
It sounded like from the presentation, it would be similar to what happened with the invasives plan in terms of putting together an RFP and then
Yeah,
selecting the contractor and then I think working through the process a bit as well.
no, I can do that. Park design guidelines,
Kelly should address that.
okay.
Not that you have to work on it, I'm just saying, do you want to talk about that a little bit, Kelly, or
Oh, right now?
say what you would hope to accomplish, I guess, by December?
Similar to what we were just talking about with the trail guidelines, it would just extend to all areas of the parks, the features we see in the parks, you know, from site furnishings to trails to types of plants or limitations on plants, you know, 90% natives, things like that. So I'll have to pull some guidelines in other towns to see what all is included. But, you know, ideally it would be a guide for us, for Public Works. And Rudy, a couple months ago, whenever we first brought this up, you had commented that it would actually be really helpful to have something like this, so that if you are to spec or you need to add a new bench somewhere, new trash cans, you go to the document, you say, oh, we can choose between these 2 or 3, and we make the choice and then we order it, rather than having, you know, the world of options around you.
It standardizes everything, and then also with the volunteer groups, we could have some guidance over them. You know, Eagle Scout projects, all those things. We have some sort of standardization for that then, instead of just a hodgepodge. That's what you end up with then, is a hodgepodge of whatever you're doing.
Are you talking about actually creating it, or as opposed to putting out an RFP for somebody to do it?
Right, creating it. And I think ideally I'll pull a lot of the skeleton. Ideally, I would find something, some examples from other towns where I can pull a skeleton and an outline, and then we can build from that.
All right, and then the
I
enforcement
think,
plan in the last bullet, I mean, that's contracts cut, that's in Rudy's court and Phil's court, so.
Which one is that? I'm
The
sorry.
last, you flip over the next page or something, it says that, I mean, that's not really PAB at this point. There's a
Oh, yeah.
contract out there.
Right, we're
So
working on this.
yeah,
We're
so
actively
that's
working on
out of our court. All right, so we want to move to the next agenda item, the communications and signage update. So I think that's you, Bennett.
And Kelly.
Hey, Kelly.
Sorry, yep, sorry, just unmute myself there. Yeah, Kelly kind of, she mentioned a couple minutes ago, but we sent a summary of all the work we did visiting all the parks and identifying where we thought, you know, park signage, possible wayfinding, all that would, where we would recommend putting that, and then Mindy helped pass that along to the design firm for the next step.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, any other comments on signage?
Is there a time frame from the designer when the next, thing will be happen?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Mindy was the one who was doing that go-between, so we can talk to Mindy and find out what next steps are there.
There've been some
And this,
suggestions from Tom Langston too, from sports, just for the athletic fields and, you know, identification, locations and sizes of those as well. So he's reached out to us on what would be the best size and type of sign to mount and for
Yep.
visibility and for those type of things. So he's made some suggestions and sent some emails as well, circulated that.
And Ben, I sent you a text, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, picture of the new park in South Fayette,
Mm-hmm.
their signage, which I thought was very well done. Yeah, I don't know how different what we're doing is, but it seemed like, South Fayette was on a good path. That, I don't know the name of that's a whole new park that they're putting in, and it's a whole new build out. But they're,
Also,
it's if you're at the south of the St. Clair Rec Center, right, and you look up the hill across Chartiers Creek, it's at the top of the hill up there. And it's a bunch of ball fields, but then they have an off-leash dog park, which the signs there were interesting as well, because there's a whole sign that talks about, this is what you have to do to be in a off-leash dog park. Here are the requirements. If anything bad happens, call 911. But it was very descriptive and it was a well-done sign, which was separate from, hey, this is this field and that's that field.
that would be great if we had property.
I'm talking about, we have room.
Eminent domain.
Yeah, in all honesty, Rudy's right. I mean, we were marking stuff down. I mean, I expected to find more in terms of, suggestions for wayfinding and things like that, but the parks are also small and we were also checking GPS navigation and that worked, the majority of cases we marked where it didn't. We found very little, less than I expected in terms of, detailed wayfinding would be necessary.
I gave a presentation last week as well to the Residence Academy. I did the Public Works presentation, and one of the attendees actually had a request for some sort of include the address, the property address of each park, because no one knows what, if you need to call 911 or, whenever there's an emergency, where do you tell them if you don't know where you're at? So it would be helpful to also include that, so.
Oh, that is,
It is, yeah.
Okay, any other comments on signage? Forestry invasive project update or status, the invasive study and update?
We reached out to Tim recently. Rudy got him hooked up with Mike Misick in GIS office. So they're getting all their initial layers and points that some of you, quite frankly, have helped plot over the years. All the different layers of trees and parks, terrain, all the mapping stuff that I'm not that familiar with, but we have the people who are, and they're getting Tim and his team the information they need. Rough month wise, middle of March, he looks to actually start being out in parks as honeysuckle invasives, the stuff that leaves out early, starts leafing out so that his team is there to have, probably add that layer to that. As it's, you guys know, it's the most visible thing whenever there's first sign of spring and everything like that. It's almost a fake sign of spring. And then after that, he'll be getting into site-specific visits. And I don't know if you mentioned a deliverable month as far as reporting.
Not yet.
Not yet, but that's as far as we are. So he is moving, and will be boots on the ground really pretty shortly here. So should have another good update for you by next week.
So Rob, the next one was you were looking if we wanted to send somebody to the next commission meeting.
Right, this is the time to ask if anyone on the Parks Board or the Parks Board in general wants to put anything forward towards commission, even if it's just attending the meetings. If there's something we want to emphasize, perhaps it's this Bird Park item. Peter, I don't know if you want to take it on for next month or how you want to go about it, if at all.
I was gonna ask you, Andrew, you mentioned presenting this to the commission. Is there any value to be going there, or is it fine just for you to pass it on?
My personal opinion, I just let me do it. I honestly, I think this is personally one of those topics that, if you start saying no, 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 then invariably someone's gonna stand up and say yes, yes, yes. Right.
Have we been to the commission about signage and just the importance of signage and just, that might be something that'd be nice to just.
Mindy's mentioned this. I
Yeah, somebody
believe she
from-
has either discussion.
It's nice if just emphasizing, we really are supportive of the team effort going on and would really appreciate if some, that we could make some progress on the signage this year. That might be one that would be nice. Normally, I think it gives a good impression if someone from your board comes and supports something.
I agree. Well, and honestly, a readout about the progress of the sign effort. And I think the trails, is important because there's a lot of discussion around mobility right now. And there's a lot of just general head nodding on the topic. So frankly, I think that, if you're lining up against that and can say, we're doing something that's going to make a contribution to that, structural effort, I think is helpful as well. So maybe it's just standing up at a commission meeting and offering a couple, updates, even if there aren't specific asks at this point, just saying, hey, these are things that are important that we are making progress on. We're really excited about, and we wanted to update the commission. I wish more boards would do that.
We have done a little bit of that in the past.
Yeah,
but
I've
Yeah,
done
we
a
could
couple times.
even just talk about these priorities that we just ran through. Just to put it in front of the commission to let them know what we're working on. I can do it, Rob, if, unless somebody else. wants to.
Okay.
Unless you want to do it as chair.
Well, honestly, I haven't looked at my schedule, so I don't know. But we have two
It's on
opportunities.
Valentine's Day,
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, it's on Valentine's Day? Oh.
yes.
Seriously? Whoops.
It only
How about
takes.
the discussion section after?
5 or 10 minutes. You just go in, the public comments first, you
That's
make your comment and you're allowed to leave. So it's only about a 30-minute commitment. Unless you want to sit for the whole meeting, you know.
And then it's only 45. Oh,
Yeah, typically. I'll change those.
Okay.
Well,
Between,
feels motivated, wouldn't we help, wouldn't you think?
I'll have to check with my wife, but I think I can do it.
okay, thanks, Peter.
I'll let you know if I can, Rob.
All right,
Sounds good.
I'll let you know.
so
Yeah.
let it be known that we are adjourning in less than 90 minutes. So this is a watershed event.
Oh, hold on, I have to make up for my audio difficulty.
You have exactly 6 minutes.
All right, let me just look right through here. I wasn't ready to give updates. Like I said, I already told you guys, I was just at a mobility discussion kind of across, municipal discussion about mobility more broadly. How do we understand transportation as we get for the whole South Hills? Again, a lot of it's driving. How do we think about, active transportation? But recognizing that cars are a part of, our ecosystem, they're going to continue to be an important part. So trying to build collaboration with, the likes of Dormont, which we're already have a very robust relationship with, but how do we expand on that? How do we do even more? We had represented, there was someone from Bethel, a couple people from Bethel Park, residents and staff from the municipality here, same with Dormont. So trying to just build some momentum. It's not a formal exercise, but something we're trying to get going. The partnership has a lot going on. So the Mount Lebanon partnership, they're seeking a part-time executive director. So if you know anybody that wants to do part-time work with the partnership, I would say it's, the downtown business district folks, right? They want someone to work about 20 hours a month, pay them $1,000 a month. It's a lot of kind of coordination and being just the face of the organization. They're doing a lot of great work. They do the artist market, they do the farmers market, they do, they're doing a lot of the activation of our business district. So if you know anybody, right, perfect job for, parent who has had a career but is staying home and is passing the time as kids. So anyway, that's an opportunity out there. They are working on design guidelines for business facades. So you guys are working on design guidelines. They're working on design guidelines really with the hope of encouraging businesses to upgrade their facades using our guidelines, and there are grant programs that the partnership would facilitate to help fund facade updates. So that's going on. They're working with a consultant to do that. We have planning for public art going on in the Uptown Business District. We're trying to get things, they're trying to get things going around where do we place public art in the business district? So that's happening. And just tentatively, we have a celebration for the completion of Vibrant Uptown for August 5th, assuming that happens. So there will be there is plans for a celebration whenever this thing is done. So that's going on. Yeah, we haven't had commission meetings in a few weeks, so it's been busy. One aside that I haven't talked to Rudy about yet though, but I had a conversation with Davey Tree today. They're software people. I was curious about their tree keeper software. And so I got a demo of it. Just curious what their software is, and it's basically just it's a asset management tool. You can go out and count all your trees, tell them what kind of tree it is, the diameter, right, where it is. And it gives you just the ability to put in work orders and track. So nice software, but it doesn't necessarily do the things I was hoping it would do, like kind of deterioration curves of, what should you expect to do? When should you be inspecting based upon the type of tree it is? They didn't do anything like that, so I was a little disappointed, but I'm trying to understand how do we build more capacity, in the municipality to proactively manage our trees, because as I think about our parks, right, a lot of our park space is trees that have just kind of grown there, and I don't know if we want them or not, right? I have absolutely no qualification to make those judgments. And how do we have a plan to actively manage a space the size of Bird Park as a urban open space that is a forest? That's different than just ignoring it, right? And how do we understand that? And I think trees are an important part of it. So trying to do some research around what does that mean? Ultimately, for me, it's a question of cost, right? How much should we be spending to maintain trees? I think the number's a lot bigger than what we do spend. But how do we understand what that delta is? So that's something I'm still continuing to research. So that's the update I've got for now. Yeah. Unless anybody has questions.
But on that, the tree piece, there's like various forestry software out there that's similar things to that, but it's more like when you're maintaining trees for harvesting and forestry, and what
Okay.
pitches do you want to keep to make them healthiest, and so there is software out there that'll do it more from and how do you want to limit so you get not free trunks and things like that. So there's like, I'll do some digging around to see if there's something that does that predictively. Okay. Well, other than that, it is, according to my watch, we have 20 some odd seconds left. So anything else, or can we adjourn and make it under 90 minutes? All right, all in favor for adjournment? Aye. Go see his kids.
Feel better, Kelly.
Thank you. Take
Thanks,
care.
everyone.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night. Organize.
Bye-bye.
I've